So there are reasons to keep writing in Microsoft Word, and actually you and I, we should take a little bit of time to make sure those are covered. But then there are reasons to quit Microsoft Word, and nobody has enough time to even list those. Breathe. You have your own favourites. I have mine. Let me just say, there is life after Microsoft Word. You don't have to keep suffering. I might be overplaying this. Not much. Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which as ever, as always, is for writers. Writers like you and me who use and you write on Macs and iPhones and iPads. Do please like, subscribe, or patronise me. I know that's the wrong word, but it's irresistible. Patronise me, and all of that helps. But now, let's get into this. If you do move away from Microsoft Word, you still have to have a way to create Word documents to send them to other people. I mean, don't make a big deal of it, William. It's very easy, but the thing is, the onus will be on you, and you will have to remember it. Also, I strongly suggest you do parallel running. Use your new word processor and Word together for a time, because I wrote for a company once that over a weekend completely replaced, I think it was WordPerfect. They swapped it out for Microsoft Word and no way to go back. So the transition was a pain, although chiefly because we were going to Microsoft Word. Anyway, first a couple of simple options, starting with Apple's Pages. Now, on the good side, if you have a Mac, an iPad or an iPhone, you already have Pages. It's a word processor, it's free, let's play our game. It is now a little unnecessarily confusing because Pages is also available in the paid Apple Creator Studio bundle. And from time to time you will be prodded to upgrade to that, but you don't need to. Okay, to be fair, there are some extras in Pages if you do subscribe, if you do pay, but they're things like an image library, nothing important to us, nothing that helps our writing. What is important is that if you are a Word user, you are likely to consider Pages as being maybe even incredibly inferior. You're likely to assume that it does nothing compared to Word. Now, it is definitely true that Word is more powerful. It's outline, I was going to say Word's outlining feature is better, but it's dreadful. Let me go with Word's outlining feature is more comprehensive than the one in Pages, although frankly that's not saying much either, because Pages is particularly weak on this. But with Word, right, you know this, there are so many features in your face that searching through that damn ribbon is a pain. With Pages, well, there actually are a huge number of features, but Apple hides them away. Seriously, Pages is vastly more powerful than it looks at first. And the major difference between Pages and Word is the major difference between Microsoft and Apple. With Microsoft, it's always, look at me, look at what I do, all these great features, all these things. Even if it can't actually do the things it says, which is insane. With Apple, it's meant to be all about you and your work. So Pages has the features when in theory you need them. It certainly does not require you to wade through them all just to get anything written, to get anything started. Now, you can hear in my voice, I do think on balance that's better, but I also know it's frustrating because it will unquestionably seem as if Pages doesn't do things that in fact it does fine, including this. A very key part of writing in Word, when you have an editor, a publisher, any kind of client, is track changes. You may know it by various other swear words, but it is potentially very useful. The client makes some changes to your text, and you can see immediately what they've rewritten, what they've deleted. You can see immediately what they've edited, and they can also choose to leave you little notes, little annotations, saying things like, I know this is rubbish, but we're the client, we're paying. That kind of thing. Not projecting. Apple's Pages, okay, has track changes. And the key thing is they're compatible with Words. Now, this is actually a reason to keep Word around for a while if you can, because you've got to try this for yourself with your documents and the type of track changes you work with. But I can tell you that for 6 years now, more, I've been getting Word documents with track changes back from clients, and I've been opening them in Pages, working through them all, grumbling a bit sometimes, compromising on others, leaving us whatever, and sending back a Word document with the next tranche of track changes or whatever. I have not once had any difficulty or any problem. The client has never complained because the client has never known, because the client has never needed to know. Yeah, the obvious thing to tell you is how you send back a Word document, but just, it is very easy. The thing is, It's the same process as with every other option. So let's go through some of those other options first. Something I don't happen to do, but you may very well prefer, because many people do, is to write in Google Docs. It's free. You can also collaborate very easily with other writers. In my experience, I found it slow and also as irritatingly designed as all Google tools. One example, less for you, more to get it off my chest. Right before we started speaking, I opened docs.google.com, signed in to one of the dozen Google accounts I have unwillingly accrued over the years, and I went to find a document just so I could show you something on the screen. Look, here's a Google Doc. But most of the documents I found there were ones I'd saved. There were other people's press releases for some reason, and one that was mine that I did write turned out to have information, confidential information in it. So, okay, with that on the screen, I instead used File, Open, picked a Word document from my Mac like you would in any other word processor. And in fact, actually, as it happens, it was one that was originally a Pages document and that I'd saved it out in Word format to send to a publisher. Google Docs, which took a startlingly long time to open this document. 8,000 word document, took about 40 seconds, but then it didn't show it to me. It kept me in that confidential document. I had to come out of that one to see that, yes, my new one had been uploaded to Google Docs. Anyone could want to open a document and then not see it. I don't know why I think that's bad design at all. Anyway, with that document open, I could actually also see that Word's tracked changes were right there in the Google Docs version as well. Now, I've got to stress this. I clearly do not have enough experience with this to be able to usefully say that I've had no problems, but I've had no problems. And it looks right. It looks good. Actually, writing in Google Docs seems better than I remembered. From this glance I've done just now and the odd hour or two of it in the past, I happen to prefer Pages and certain other options that we'll mention. And one thing about moving away from Word is that you have these options, you have these choices, and you can pick one. You can pick ones that you like. I would say that Pages and Google Docs are probably like the main alternatives to Word for just, solid, basic, get it done word processing. There is LibreOffice, which is, well, it's not like I want to be rude, and I also definitely don't want to be sued. Let's sprinkle the word allegedly around a lot. LibreOffice is allegedly a Microsoft Word knockoff. I'm sure it's more than that. Sure, it's fine. But what it means is, I know it definitely does work the same way Word does. And while you've got to presume that LibreOffice doesn't have all of Word's insane problems, well, we'll try and get away from Word here. So, and there are so many things to get away to, so many options. Alongside Pages and Google Docs, there is, for one example, Scrivener. This is best for long form writing, so novels, books. I think you know what long form is, but yeah, a lot of words. Chunk of words. There is so much to say in favor of Scrivener when you're using that, and actually a little against it, that there were, on this 58 Keys channel here, there was a whole month of episodes just about Scrivener. I'll put a link below. Then there's also IA Writer, an app that is beloved by some and seemed fine by me, but I need to spend more time in it. Oh, speaking of beloved, there's BB Edit, which again, I mean, the users are besotted with that, and to me, that one seemed best suited to programmers. You spend a lot of time writing line by line code, but it can also, and I did, use it for regular writing. Actually, BB Edit, I think, kind of straddles the line between word processor and text editor, which, granted, is a very fine line. Broadly, the difference is that a text editor is just for just the smashing away of text, get the words in, and a word processor, well, it's that, plus more about the presentation of your text. For example, one of Word's good features is styles. I found it very difficult to understand when I first used it, but it's useful. That's one where you can say all chapter headings in this book should be 14-point Garamond, bold, black, whatever, but then later you think, nah. And you can have them instantly, all of them, switch to 12-point Palatino, italic, pink. Most word processors do that. Most text editors don't. But the thing is, how they do it varies, and also how well the different word processors do it varies as well. Yeah. As much as I have loved word processors throughout my 30-odd years as a freelance writer, it happens that I tend to write a lot of things now in Drafts 5, a text editor. That's because most of the time now my text is going to be published online, and all I want to send out is the bare text. I never print anything. No, I have actually no idea where my printer is. So if I'm going to be doing something with more design, more like a layout, well, actually, I'll go to a publishing app like Affinity. Affinity is a more specialized publisher than Pages or Word ever could be. And actually, I think a good thing that has changed is that we can now so easily use specialized tools. So, for instance, I mentioned that outlining in Word is dreadful, but then it's also practically non-existent in Pages. I did actually try out, sorry, side point, I tried outlining in Google Docs earlier today, but you've got to show me where I'm wrong here. I cannot be right about this, but everything I could do, everything I could find out about Google Docs outlining seems to me to be a way of making a kind of index or a contents page. You mark certain lines as your document as being various headings, and then when you've done that, you get a list of headings in like a sidebar. Yeah, brilliant for clicking to go straight to that section, but totally worthless as an outline. I mean, if I outline at all, I want to be able to see the whole thing or collapse it down so that I only have to think about the section I'm working on now. I want to be able to read that outline and realize, yeah, I need another bit there in the middle, and add it right there in the middle. I want to be able to think, no, that's too important. There's stuff at the bottom that needs to move nearer the top, and move it near there. Really what I want is the app Omni Outliner. So I use Omni Outliner. It's an app, it's called an outliner, it's outlines in the name, but it's about developing and managing and editing ideas, whether that's ideas for writing an article, a book, or actually, as I quite often do, producing an event. You could make a case to me that Microsoft Word has academic style outlines, and I can look at you with sympathy. Even if you were to stick with Word, go get the trial version of Omni Outliner. Okay, link in the description. But speaking of sticking with Word, if you actually want to keep writing in Microsoft Word, well, then I'm not judging. But I couldn't I really? Because there's not even a pixel of a chance that you'd still be watching this far if you were firmly in the Word camp. There's light outside. A real impressing reason right there to keep up putting it with Word is that business of everyone you work with expecting you to. And it's not like that's schoolyard peer pressure. This is a practical thing. Publishers expect Word. Some, I've seen this, some, not the ones I've worked with, they get unhealthily mad if you try sending them something else. I find that quite disturbing, seeing that happening. But it is the straight truth that you have chosen, or I have chosen, to write in Pages, Google Docs, Scrivener, iRead, whatever it is. The burden is on us to then send our document, our text, in the form your publisher or your editor or whoever your client is wants, and that will be Word. In Pages, you just choose the file menu, then export to, and then Word. Don't click require password to open. I mean, what are we, the CIA? Just click save. In Google Docs, it's again file, but then it's download, because of course it is. Google Design, what can you do? File, download, then you choose Microsoft Word, and then it's saved to your downloads folder on your Mac. You don't have an option to put it where you want. No. Yeah. With Scrivener, well, it's the same thing. It's the same idea, but it is more involved. It looks more involved because what you're doing is using that app's very powerful compile feature. As a whole, this is the feature in Scrivener. It takes your manuscript or just the chapters you specify, optionally does a gigantic amount of formatting and page numbers and header, footer design, page layout, all stuff, and then can export in Word or PDF or ebook or just everything. In Scrivener, just choose compile, choose Microsoft Word, hit compile, don't look at anything else, you're fine. There is also the option in Google Docs to choose file, email, and then select Word as the format to email an attachment in. Actually, Pages is the same thing with its share option, doesn't it? I don't know, I can't decide. I suggest you probably might not be wise. Use it, don't you? You can always save the document to Mac and then email it from there. I think that's useful. I think that's quite important because that means you keep the chain of documents. So your Pages or Google Docs original, then the Word version you're sending out. I mean, true, the editor or client or whoever might well then send you back a copy in Word with those changes. And then that's actually 4 versions to keep hold of, isn't it? Because your original Word one you sent out, Word one you got back, and then that new Word document opened in Pages or Scrivener or whatever it is, Google Docs. Yeah, okay, I can see you getting into a mess with that. So maybe I'm wrong, actually, and maybe sending or sharing directly from Google Docs and Pages into email cuts out a version, but always keep the one you're writing in the app you're writing it in. Actually, do you know, recently, I'm just thinking about this talking to you. I think recently I found I've been saving out the Word version to send somebody, then I've deleted it after it's gone. It's a workflow thing, and you and I, we both need to think about it, but then you and I just need to stick to whatever we decide to do. I would like to say that I think the major reason to quit Microsoft Word is that it is stupid. Harsh, but fair. All right, the other day, for example, I just wanted to italicize one word in a paragraph, but Word knows better than us, so I didn't do that. It instead justified the whole paragraph, made it straight right, ragged left. Obviously. Or actually in that same document, a bit further down, I made a mistake. I missed a closing single quote mark. It was a title quoted by somebody and I missed a bit. So obviously I clicked at the end of the title, I typed an apostrophe, but Word knows better than us. So instead it put in a comma over and over again. It wasn't me making a typing mistake. I would press the apostrophe key, I would get a comma, because of course I did. Okay. Another reason to quit Word is the cost. Microsoft basically prices things based on what it thinks it can get out of you. So pricing is ludicrously hard to pin down. Don't quote me on this because even the Microsoft website wasn't playing nice when I checked just now, but it looks like Word costs $100 a year. And if it is, that gets you the Excel spreadsheet app that you might well find useful as well. And it gets you the PowerPoint app, which nobody ever does yet. If you work for any companies, though, you might also find that they have a site license for the online version of Word. So you're actually using Safari or Chrome or whatever it is, but it looks like Word, it acts like Word. I can do that because at present I'm Deputy Chair of the Writers Guild of Great Britain and they have exactly that site license. I am explicitly required to use Word on their system sometimes, but it doesn't feel right to have my novel on their servers, does it? So instead I only use it for guild business. And actually, there's also this. If there is anything more clunky than Word, it is Word in a web browser. I might be on my own there because you'll find a lot of proponents of using the web for Word and actually for everything you possibly can, but they tend to be always very technical proponents and also ones that I have to assume never write in bad internet reception areas. What I most recently and most reluctantly did was I bought a copy of Word as a one-off purchase instead of a subscription, specifically with one client, a complicated element, to just be sure they were getting one of them. And there's practically no point telling you the cost of this. I think it was about £40, but then there was tax and yeah, and there are always offers and sales. I think, this is a guess, but it fits. I think the reason that this option to buy Word outright, to pay once instead of subscribing, is only an pretty obscure legal thing. Like the way competitions, at least here in the UK, have to state somewhere that no purchase is required. There's some financial hit to them if they do anything else. And whatever you think of Microsoft software, it's really hot on business and contractual and financial benefits to itself. So I do have Word. I also know that it's a slightly older version. I know that it will never be updated. And actually, sometimes it even looks a bit dodgy. When I first installed it, I had some pretty flaky error messages, and for a while I was actually worrying a bit that I'd paid some firm for pirated software. But then I remembered that this is Microsoft Word, so, you know, flaky and entirely unhelpful error messages, that's just a Monday, isn't it, with Word? Anyway, there are these one-off purchase options. You just need to search for them because it keeps changing. And yeah, it must be on the Microsoft site, but I couldn't find it there. Do a Google. There's also LibreOffice. We mentioned that. And again, well, actually, again, this is something I need you to tell me because I can't prove it online, you know, by checking with Microsoft. Couldn't prove it. It definitely used to be the case that it was possible to get Word for free on the iPad. It used to be that if your iPad screen size was below 10.1 inches, I think that's what it was, Word was free to use on it. Now, today, the only iPad with a small screen size modern iPad on sale is the iPad mini, but I believe I've read people saying they had to pay for Word on that. So maybe none of this is true anymore. And if you know better, it would really, I'd sleep better at night knowing the answer. I should say, by the way, that's it for how to create Word and things. But there's one more interesting thing I would like to tell you, because I mentioned the iPad. Okay. What seems to have happened with the iPad is that in 2010, when it first came out, Microsoft decided to kill it. The company refused to put Word on the iPad, and since everyone needs Word, well, that was going to mean the iPad would die, and tough luck, Apple. As it happens, the iPad succeeded extremely well instead. And because people therefore had to find alternatives to Word, they found them. They found a lot of them. They used on the iPad, which, all right, by itself might just be a couple of fingers up at Microsoft. But then there was this. Once people had to find alternatives, and once people did find alternatives, they found they liked them. They found they liked them a lot. They liked them more than they did Word. And since at least most iPad alternatives to Word were also on the Mac and on the PC, people moved to them on the Mac and the PC too. So suddenly, instead of killing the iPad, Word's stranglehold on word processing was broken. Microsoft eventually raced. Do you eventually race? At some point, they said, okay, went on the iPad, but the dam had burst. There was little reason to come back. Which actually, I mean, I know, have you noticed I'm a bit critical of Word? I think in this case, there's a little bit of a shame, because just as with apps like Scrivener, Microsoft Word, it had to be started again from scratch to become Word for the iPad. And it meant Word for the iPad has none of the decades of old features and old code that's in Word for the Mac and the PC. They were new, simpler versions, which means if you paid me money to use Word, I would use it on the iPad. But you would have to pay me, and I would like there to be chocolate involved too. That's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Thank you very much for watching. Now take care of yourself, okay? Write more. It's so important. And I'll see you soon.